If you've been using ClickUp for a while, you've probably realized that you cannot use it to its full potential if you are not following the best practices of project management. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how, as a manager or a founder, you can create a dashboard that lets you track if your team is using ClickUp to its best practices and see how, over time, your team is behaving together. In this video, we're going to create this very dashboard in a few minutes, and I'm going to show you step by step how this dashboard can help use ClickUp to its full potential and eventually start to do some capacity planning with the software and make sure that your team is efficiently working in ClickUp. Before that, we're going to build a view that lets you track which specific tasks are not following these practices and make sure that you fix them so that your project management is perfect in ClickUp. Let's first start by understanding what we need to track in terms of ClickUp best practices. Mainly what we want to know on the task is who has to do the work, when to do the task, how long does it take, and is it completed on time, is it overdue or not. Now, what that means is that we want an assignee on the task, a due date, a time estimate, and we don't want delays. We don't want to see overdue tasks. In terms of project management and ClickUp specifically, it means we have to create 4 filters in our software. We want to watch the tasks that don't have an assignee, that don't have a due date, that don't have an estimate, or the tasks overdue. And I'm going to show you in ClickUp how you can create a view that lets you track all of that. Let's get back to ClickUp, and I'm in the delivery space right here. Say I'm the project manager, the head of delivery, the COO of my agency, whatever your role is. And I want to track these best practices in a ClickUp single view. I'm going to create a view at the space level right here, and it's going to be a list view. We're going to call it bad practices. Now, instead of creating in the space, you could also create it at the everything level so that you track everything through the whole workspace. But say you're managing only a team, maybe you want to create that at your space level only. I've created my view called it bad practices. I'm going to auto save it right here. And from there, we're going to create a bad practices filter. If we get back to our diagram, we want to track the tasks that don't have an assignee, don't have due date, don't have estimate, and are overdue. Tracking these metrics will make sure that your teams are accountable, that you have an accurate project planning, and that you can do some capacity planning in the future. If you don't have assignees or deadlines on your tasks, you're not really able to plan the capacity of your team to know if you're going to go overboard. These metrics, this data, needs to be on every single ClickUp task for you to use it to its full potential. Now, if we get back to our workspace again, I'm going to create these filters. I'm going to create a first filter for my assignees. I'm going to search assignee and click is not set. And that way we have a first filter that shows me every single task that doesn't have an assignee. The next filter is going to be on the due dates, and we're going to combine these filters. We want to see tasks that either don't have an assignee or don't have a due date or both. We're going to use the or combination, and we're going to select is not set. And next, time estimates. I'm going to look for the time estimate filter and say is not set, and add one last filter for the overdue tasks. So we're going to go into due date again and say is overdue. And we can save this filter into the active filters right here. That way, if you want to use it in the future, or if you have another company member that wants to use it in their own space, they can access it very quickly. We're going to create this filter and call it bad practices. I'm going to save it. And here, as you can see, we have the tasks that match the criteria of our filter. We're going to display the information we have in our filter. I don't really need the priority for now. I'm only going to display the due date and the time estimate. Now, potentially, we could also add a filter to track tasks that don't have a start date. And start dates are essential if you want to do some team capacity planning. But because we're just starting, and it would be too ambitious to have start date, due date, estimates, assignees on every single task, these 3 metrics first are not. As you can see, this one's overdue. You might decide to push it to later and remove it from your view. I've changed the due date and it disappeared right now. It's not in my view anymore. This one doesn't have an assignee, an estimate, or due date. In this case, I need to fill that in. I'm going to put an assignee, I'll put a due date, and I'll put a time estimate. Same for this one. If we give it time estimate, it will disappear from our view as well. Next, I need to give it a due date that's to later, and it should be hidden. Perfect. As you can see, you can go through each task one by one and make sure it has an assignee, a due date, and an estimate. And this bad practices view lets you filter exactly on those tasks and make decisions regarding those tasks. Now, this is a great view to set up and to use because as a manager, you really don't want to bother with the day-to-day, but you might want to see if ClickUp is being used properly, if each tasks have an assignee, and if everyone is accountable for a task. Make sure you add your assignees, make sure you add your due dates, make sure you add your estimates. Now, that's the first way to see this bad practices view. But I'm going to show you an even better way, which is a bad practices dashboard. And we're going to create a dashboard that tracks these metrics and some more over time. This dashboard is made of a few indicators. The first ones are the ones we've been talking about, the assignee, estimate, due date, and overdue tasks. Now that's great because you can track these metrics and even track them over time. And we want to track a few things more. We want to see the statuses over time because seeing this will let us know if a lot of tasks are being opened up over time compared to the tasks that are being closed. Next card is going to be our assignees. This one lets us know if tasks are assigned evenly. If we have an assignee that has 100 tasks and another that has 2 tasks, there must be a problem right there. This metric will let us know that. Next, we have cycle time. That's the time between the opening of tasks and the closing of tasks. This lets us know if a task takes on average 5 days to be done, 50 days, 100 days, 2 days. This is a great metric as well. These cards are a bit more about micromanagement, which I don't really recommend, but it could be a good way to know who's behind on their tasks or who's not using ClickUp. And that way you're going to be able to discuss with them and try to understand why. Let's get back to ClickUp and create a dashboard view in our space. We're going to go into the views right here and add a view called dashboard. And that view is going to let us create a dashboard right in that space. It's going to focus on all the tasks that are in that space. Make sure you create it in the right area. You could create it in a space, a folder, a list, but also at the everything level in the dashboard area right here on the left. Depending on your role, if you're the company owner and you want to see things overall, or if you're just a team manager, you want to create it in the correct area. Now, let's say we are the project manager or the COO, we handle the delivery, we want to track this at the space level. We're going to create our first metrics. The first one is going to be the tasks that don't have an assignee. We're going to start from scratch right here. Look for a calculation card. In terms of location, we're going to pick the whole space and we're going to call this no assignee. The task count is correct. As a unit, we could put tasks with no assignee because we'll have a figure, and then this is a great way to know quickly what this card is about. We're going to include the subtasks and we're going to create a filter. We're going to create a filter that is focused on the tasks where our assignee is not set. And we can save our filter in the workspace filter. We want to do that so that we don't have to create it again in the future in another dashboard or in another view. We're going to rename this filter and call it no assignee. And you're going to see that it's already handy for the next step. We're going to add a card. And this one shows us the tasks that don't have an assignee. That's what I want. So we're going to go ahead and add a second card. I'm going to go into add card right here. And we want to see that same information, but over time, over the last quarter, for example. We're going to use a custom card called line chart. This line chart is going to be focused on the whole space location. And we're going to call it no assignee. As a grouping, we're going to put none, stacked, include subtasks. And as a filter, we can use the filter that we already have created that's called no assignee right here. And that way we can, with a single click, apply filter to other cards or tasks. That's why saved filters are handy, because you can reuse them in another card, in another view, and your whole workspace can use them for their own projects. For the filters you use often, like those, I recommend you to save them. We're going to click apply right here and add our card. Now we have our diagram right here, and it shows us the tasks that don't have an assignee. As you can see, over time, we have a lot more tasks with no assignee that are starting to pop up. You have to make sure that you fill that in, that you add an assignee, and if you do so, this should decrease over time. Next, we're going to display the tasks that don't have an estimate. We're going to duplicate this one, and we're going to just adjust a few settings, go into the gear and call it no estimate. We can change the unit, task with no estimate, and go into our filter right here and say time estimate is not set. We can save it as well and call it no estimate. I'm going to click save filter and click save. And this shows us the amount of tasks that don't have an estimate over time. Next, I'm just going to use the exact same card as well. Duplicate this one, go into the gear, call it no estimate. And I just have to change the filter. Go into save filters and use the one called no estimate, click apply and save. And we have our second type of information, tasks that don't have an estimate. And we're going to move on to the next data, the no due date, the tasks that don't have a due date. I'm going to duplicate this one, go into the gear again, call it no due date and tasks with no deadline, for example. And then we're going to change our filter right here. I'm going to delete this one and add a filter where the due date is not set. Save filter and save. As you can see, we have due dates on quite a lot more tasks. We only have 23 tasks with no deadline. That's pretty good. And if we duplicate that chart right here, we should have some similar information. We just have to change our filter, no due date, and use the no due date filter, click apply and save. As you can see, it's quite easy once you get the hang of it. You have to do exactly the same setup for each type of card. You just change the filter. It should be pretty fast. As you can see, only 23 cards with no due date. That's pretty good, but we can do even better and add due dates to our cards. Now, if I go into the best practices view and add some due dates, for example, right there, I've added assignees and due dates on quite a lot of cards. And if I go right here, as you can see, my data has changed a bit. I have a little bit less tasks with no due dates, a little bit less with no assignee, and it's moving already in the good directions. This makes you a lot more conscious about using ClickUp to its best practices and trying to get to 0 in each of these styles. Now let's add the last widget regarding these 4 best practices. The last one is about the overdue tasks. I'm going to go into the settings, call it overdue. We have 41 overdue tasks. And this is probably accurate because if you get back into the view, if I open up the subtasks, I have quite a lot right here. And if I open up some more subtasks, I have some tasks with no assignee, some overdue. So the figures should match. It's important to open up your tasks, open up your subtasks, because these filters also apply on subtasks. Now you can only apply them on tasks if you want to. You go into the gear and you turn off the include subtasks, but I recommend you to use it on the subtasks as well, because your subtasks supposedly should also follow these best practices. Obviously, it gives us a lot less numbers if we don't include the subtasks. Now let's add my last chart, which is the overdue tasks. Let's go into the gear, call it overdue, and use my filter where due date is overdue. Click apply, save, and we have our chart and our numbers should match the number right here, 41. Perfect. As you can see, the space is not used to the best practice. There's quite a lot of tasks with no estimate, no due date, overdue, no assignee. So you need to make sure that your workspace follows better practices before you set that up. Otherwise, it'll probably look like this or even worse. A lot of my clients start with tasks with no assignee, no estimate, no due date. You need to educate your team on how to set that up. And once you do, it'll make everyone a lot more conscious about following the best practices in ClickUp to be able to use it in the future for capacity planning, for road mapping, and use it to its full potential. Now back to building our dashboard. If I go into my diagram right here, we have 5 more cards to add. We're going to start with the statuses, overtime, and the assignees. And we get back into ClickUp, add a card. There's one called statuses overtime, and it's the one you need to use. This one will let you know how statuses are balanced over time. I'm going to pick the space location, and then we're going to pick a time range, a rolling period of 90 days. By the way, you can set your rolling period for every single of these diagrams. If you want to see the task with no assignee on a range of 90 days, you can also do so. I'll show you right after. And we're going to include our subtasks and click add card. What this does is that it shows us how statuses are balanced over time. As you can see, it's not that great because we have a lot of open tasks that have stayed open for the last weeks. So you need to make sure that this open line decreases over time, ideally, or is stable, because if it increases, it probably means your team is over capacity and a lot more is coming in than getting out. So your delivery is not efficient. Ideally, what you want to see here is this line being stable and the close line increasing over time. If I go into settings, in terms of time range, I can replace the month by a rolling period of 90 days, for example, and have it by weeks. And that way I will see my data over a longer span of time. This pulls data since March. We're in June. It's already 90 days of data. Depending on what you want, you can adjust this to 90 days, 30 days, 360 days, up to you. Next, I'm going to add my assignee card. I'm going to go into add card and search for assignee and look for the card called task by assignee that has this little red chart right here, because it will display a bar graph of your total tasks by assignee. As a location, we're going to pick our space and we'll include our subtasks and add our card. As you can see, Ramsey has a lot more tasks than the others, and we have a lot of unassigned tasks. You need to make sure that it's quite balanced, that you have very little unassigned tasks, and that everyone has more or less the same amount of time. Now, obviously, this is just some insight. If someone has a lot of subtasks that are super small, it might be as balanced as someone that has a very few tasks that are very big. This does not reflect the time spent on tasks. Just take it with a grain of salt. Next, we're going to add our two last cards, and these are the ones I told you about. They're a bit more into micromanagement. They're a bit more about people. It lets you know who's behind and who are your best ClickUp users. Let's get back into our ClickUp and add our card called Who's Behind. If I search who and I pick this one, I'm just going to add all my tasks, and I'm not going to include the archive tasks, and click add card. If we go into the bottom, let's make it a little bit bigger. And if we rank this, we're going to be able to see who has overdue tasks and who has a lot of unread notifications. Here we have a ranking of the people that have a lot of overdue tasks. As you can see, I'm the one that has the most, not great. And who has unread notifications? I tend to read my notifications, so I have very few, but Lucas and Diane, for example, they don't read them. They have 29 notifications, so you need to talk with them, chat with them, see why they have a lot of notifications unread, and teach them maybe how to go through their inbox. There's a dedicated video about the ClickUp inbox, so if you want to know more about that, you can go watch it, but you want to make sure your inbox is clean. My final card, the ClickUp best users. If you add this card, go into the tables right here, there's a card called Workspace Points. If you click it and pick the location, which is the whole space, as the time range, I recommend you to choose a rolling period of 30 to 90 days, for example. And if we click save, this lets you know over time who's been using ClickUp the best. And as you can see here, I've been using ClickUp quite a lot. I've worked on 100 tasks, so I have 105 points because it takes into account the comments, the task completed, how many tasks you've worked on, basically how active you are on the software. This ranking lets you know who's been using ClickUp and who hasn't. If you don't see any points over a span of 30, 90 days, it means the person hasn't even opened up a task and started it. It probably means they're not logged onto ClickUp, they're not using it, and this lets you know that and act accordingly. Now again, this is not an indicator of productivity, of performance, of team quality. This is just a software insight, but it's a great way to start improving your processes, improving your project management. Once you're happy about your layout, you can just protect your view. No one can edit it except you. Now, I hope it helps you monitor over time if ClickUp is being used properly. These bar charts should all be decreasing over time if you're using it to its best potential. And make sure that you have assignees, that you have estimates, that you have due dates on your tasks, because this is really the starting point of using the software in a powerful way, being able to do some road mapping, some dependencies rescheduling, some capacity planning. You're really going to be able to make this a very powerful project management software, but this is essential to start. You need to create the proper habits, and this is one of the best ways to monitor those as a manager or as a founder. Now, if you want this type of dashboard set up for you, as well as some more advice on ClickUp best practices, you can book a discovery call with me, and we're going to go through your business and see how I can set up a dashboard like this one but also very customized, very tailored ones for your business to help you ramp up your productivity. Now, I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you next time.